Okay, so today we are talking over what we did on Friday a little bit. That worksheet had a section on is this or is this not a polynomial? And this one would not be a polynomial. Whether I write it that way or this way, it's the same thing. They're both writing the same thing. It's just this reminds us that it's to a weird exponent. The square roots are to the 1/2 power. So here's another way you could write one kind of weird. Polynomial or not? Well, it looks weird, so it's probably not. And you're right, it's not. But why? Yes, this would be 2x to the negative 1. Do you remember that that is the same as dividing by x? If you forgot that, get it back in your head, because that's important. What does this mean? This means inverse. And the inverse of x is 1 over x. That's why the x goes in the basement there, see? All right, so why isn't this a polynomial? Because that's not a nice exponent. If they have exponents that are not positive, nice numbers. Can't be decimals either. That's a decimal or a fraction. And again, that's a square root. So this would mean 3 root x. It's the same exact thing as that. Either one of them, not a polynomial, because you can't have weird exponents. All right, so that's the first part of that worksheet. The next part of that worksheet gave you 2 points. Do you remember, if I give you points in this way, f of 1 is equal to 7, I'm giving you the point 1 comma 7. Remember this? And then if I give you a couple points like that, and maybe I give you another point 2 comma 5, how do I use that big old formula? Y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. We talked about this at the beginning of the year. Talking about it again now. We're going to be talking about it again on the test, which is like 3-4 days from now. Can you believe we're having another test? Yes, we are. But I have good news. It's one of the easier tests. So we've had a hard one now, and now we're going to have another easy one. So, but if you don't study for it, it's not going to go well. So what's on that test? Well, things like this. Give you a couple points. See if you can write an equation for it. There's a couple points. See if you can write an equation for it. Give it a shot. If you've already forgotten this, then you need to remember it now. I'll show you in a minute, but give it a shot without me. This is on the ACT test also. It's called coordinate geometry. Because see, I got coordinates of points there. Some people look like they may not know how to start. Just in case you're having trouble starting, figure out the slope between the 2 points. If you want to graph them, go ahead. 1 comma 7 would be like there. 2 comma 5 would be like there. You can figure out the slope that way, or you can figure out the slope by subtracting. So the y is on the top, and the x is on the bottom. That'll give you the slope. I like to do it this way. 5 minus the 7 over the 2 minus the 1. Be minus. And that would give me negative 2 over 1, which would be negative 2. The slope's negative 2. There's a lot of ways you could have done that. You could have done this thing and said, oh, the slope is going down. That's negative. It's going from here to here. How much does it rise? It doesn't. It falls 2. How much does it run? 1. There's the slope of negative 2. You could have stuck these numbers, these two numbers, into the equation like this. I'm going to pick this to be my sub 1s. And I'm going to pick these to be my sub 2s. Or my plain old x's and y's, sorry. I can just stick in x comma y is 2 comma 5. And I could stick in my x1, y1. x1 is 1 and y1 is 7. And I end up solving that, I get my slope. Now I'm going to get m alone. See, there's a lot of ways to find slope. Personally, I kind of like that first way I did, where I just subtracted these two and I got negative 2. Okay? So there's negative 2. And then how do I finish my equation? I take either one of the 2 points. This one I'm going to pick, and I'll stick it in here and here. What do I put in? X goes in where the x wants to be. And y of 7 goes in here. So it's y minus 7 equals negative 2 times x minus 1. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Good. This is an important process because we're going to learn how to use this for quadratics. There's a special equation used for quadratics where they give you 2 points and you make a quadratic out of it. This is just 2 normal points. We're going to do this over and over again. We're going to give you 2 points and say, here, make a quadratic out of it. We're going to give you 2 points and say, here, make a cubic out of it. You're going to have to do this like a whole bunch of times. But here's the key. You got to know this formula. If you don't know this red formula here, you're toast. Okay, so memorize that. All right, last thing on that worksheet was just like taking things and moving them around. Well, we continue that on today's worksheet a little bit, except we say instead of here's a graphic move, tell me what the equation is. Now we do, here's an equation, tell me what we'd have to do to the parent to make this happen. Can you picture what the parent for this one was? Parent would be this. So just, if I was giving you directions on how to move it and stretch it and whatever, what would you do? What would you say? Yes, it's right 3 and it's up 5. Does the order matter? Yes, it does. There's directions on how to move it there. And then if I actually asked you to graph it, do you remember that this is called vertex form of an equation because it's got the vertex in it? The vertex is here and here. But it's not -3, 5. Anybody remember this from last year? What is it? Remember? 3, 5. Why is it 3, 5? Because you can't trust the stuff on the inside. It's always the opposite of what you think. So instead of a -3, it's a +3. The stuff on the outside that was +5, I can trust that, and I leave it as +5. All right, so there's my vertex at 3, 5. All right, I'm going to give you another one. I want you right now to write this one down. X minus 7 squared minus 8. And tell me, what's its vertex? It's really easy. What is it? 7, 8. And what form is that in again? What form is it? Vertex form. Okay. The other thing they ask you, oh, I'm sorry, you're right. It's a -8. You trust this one. You don't trust that one. Sorry. Sorry. Okay. Okay, so now, that's vertex form. If I want general form, generally, you just multiply things out. So, I'm going to multiply. I'm not going to do all the work, but I'm going to just show you how I do this. A lot of kids think that's factored form, and it's not. Factored form would have to be, the whole thing has to be factored. Can't have a leftover number out here. All right. So, just a quick review of the general forms for these things. If I have something like this, that's vertex form, because I can see the vertex right there. If I have something that's all multiplied all the way out, and I can't have it all multiplied out to this, 6x plus 5, that's called general form. And it's got A is 1, and B is 36, and C is 5. It's got A, B, and C in it. That's general form. What's the other kind of form? Factored form. If that whole thing would factor to this, and it won't because my middle term wouldn't be right. Maybe I'll just change it right now and make it work. There, I'll make it 6x. Now it'll actually factor. Okay. So this is factored form. This is general form. And that's in vertex form, but it's probably a completely different equation. It's not related to these two these are actually equal to each other. All right. Just wanted to remind you what the different forms are. Last thing, if I were to graph this, do you think the parabolas have symmetry to them? Would you agree that that is a line of symmetry for my parabola? They call it the axis of symmetry, and so an axis of symmetry for this is a line. It's a line like x equals something or y equals something. If this is the spot 5, 2, anybody want to take a shot at what that line of the equation is of that dotted line? X equals 5. That's all there is to it. Do you notice that that's the first number of your vertex? So if I tell you a vertex, isn't it really easy to get the axis of symmetry? Just take this number and say x equals 5. All right, so here's a vertex. Negative set. What was that going to be? A 888. I don't know if I've ever made one of those in my life. That's kind of cool. Let's try that again. Woo! That's awesome. Okay. Anyway, 8, comma 14. What's the axis of symmetry? X equals -8. What's the equation for this puppy? Y equals parentheses squared with an X here, and I need a number here, and that'll be vertex form. What number goes where the blue question marks are? The 8 and the 14, and on, is this a positive 8 or negative 8? Positive 8, because it's the opposite of what you think. And then on the outside? Positive 14. There it is in what form again? Vertex form, and what's that thing called? Axis of symmetry. All right, that's all you need to know for today. We're only going halfway through worksheet 2.1. It's called 2.1 worksheet number 2. We're only doing problems 1 through 5 today. You'll have more you'll need to learn tomorrow.